Hello, and welcome to lecture 7. So far, we have learned how to create different widgets from the TK library. Today, we're going to focus on a specific widget, the entry box. The entry box is a little box where you can type in different informations. In Google, you use the entry box to search for what you want. To be more specific, today, we're going to create a program that looks something like this. You can type in the name of your friends. When you push the button, the name will be added into the list box. Essentially, when we push the button, we take what's inside the entry box and insert it inside the list box. We will also learn about the spacing of the widgets. You see how there are spaces between the entry box and the button, as well as the list and the button. These spaces are called paddings. Notice also that the entry box is aligned to the left, while the button is aligned to the right. This is called anchor. We will learn how to anchor the widget to the left side or to the right side. So let's get started. Like always, we start by telling the computer what kind of program are we running. We're running a Python program. Next, we include the TK library. This is important for us to create windows. Like we have done many times, now we create window called root, and we tell the root to go into the main loop to make the window appear. We should probably try to run this first to make sure that everything is working. So let's try to run the program. This is the window we just created. Next, let's adjust the size of the window with the geometry command. Root geometry. From the previous lecture, we learned that the first number controls the width, while the second number controls the height. The last two numbers control the location, where the window will pop up. Now that we have finished with the geometry, we are ready to create an entry box. The entry box will go inside the main window called root. The background for the entry box will be white. Once we have created the entry box, we will call it ent, E-N-T for entry. Next, let's also create a button using the button command. The button will go inside the main window, root. On top of the button, it will say, press me. Once we have created the button, we'll call it button. Lastly, we'll create a list box to hold our friends' names. The list box could be created using the command listbox. Like the rest of them, you will also go into the main window. Let's make the background yellow. Let's not forget that now that we have created the widgets, we also need to make them appear. First, we'll pack the entry box into the window. Second, we'll also pack the button into the window. And lastly, we'll pack the list box into the window. If everything is working out fine, we should see a window with all three widgets packed into them. Let's try to run the program. Good job. I want you to take a close look at the widget. Notice that they are not spaced apart. They're all kind of bunched together. It's easy to add padding between them so that they look more spaced apart. There are two types of padding. One type controls the space between the left and the right side of the widget. Another type controls the space between the top and the bottom of the widget. Now, if we go back to the code, if I want to add more padding in the vertical direction, I would add the command pad y equals 10. This controls the spacing at the top of the button of the widget as well as the bottom. If you want to control the space between the left and the right side of the widget, you will use pad x. So now, If we run the program, it will look something like this. Notice how they are now spaced between the button and the other two widgets. You can add the padding into any of the widgets and control the spacing accordingly. Sometimes you might want to make the button align to the left or the right side. To do this, you will use the keyword anchor to anchor the button. For our case, we'll anchor the button to the east side. You want to make sure that E is capital E. You can also anchor the button to the west side by putting capital W instead. So now, if we run the program, the button will end up on the right side. Good job. If everything is still working fine, we're ready to work with the entry box. When the button is pressed, we want the button to call a function. The function will take what's written inside the entry box and put it in the list box. So let's create this function called, let's call it insert. Now we need to hook up the button command with this function insert. Command equals the insert. Now that we have the button hooked up, we're ready to write the function. You'll be surprised how easy it is to get what's inside the entry box. You first write the name of the entry box. In our case, the name of the entry box is ent, E-N-T. Then you write .get to get what's inside the entry box. You can't get easier than this. If you have never seen this convention before, get, in this case, is called a method. You don't have to worry about what a method is for now. I will explain it when we get to object and classes. For now, just remember that this command will give you back what's inside the text box. We'll call this variable name. So if we print out name, it will correspond with what we write in the entry box. Maybe that doesn't make much sense. So let me run this program and you'll see what I mean. Now, if I insert my name into the entry box and press the button, you will notice that my name is printing out. When the button is pressed, the function goes and gets what's inside the entry box and then print it out, just like exactly what we wrote previously. So if I were to change the name to my sister's name, Shelly, and push the button, you see how now it's printing out Shelly. Okay, so instead of printing it out to the interpreter, I want to print it out directly into the list box. You would use a command very similar to the previous one. You first write down the name of the list box, then you add .insert. I want to insert it at the end of the list. And I want to insert the name. Notice that we have used another method. With this method, we're going to insert name into the end of the list. The first argument, the capital END, controls where you want to add into the list. The second argument controls what you want to add into the list. Let's try to run the program. Let's first add in my name, Chieh. Let's add the name of my cat, Pooh. Now let's add the name of the girl I had a crush on in high school. As you can see, each item is added at the end of the list. This is why we had n as one of our arguments. If instead we put 0, all the items will be added into the very first position. If we use 1, all the items will be added into the second position. If we use 2, all the items will be added into the third position. You can add a name into the list anywhere you want, depending on the number you choose. Try to play around and change the numbers, and you will quickly learn the difference. One last thing before we end the lecture for today. How do you delete the entry box? Once we have inserted a name, we want to empty it to insert the next name. You might be able to see the pattern. We're going to use another method. You start with the name of the entry box, in our case, ent. Now, you call the method by typing .delete from position 0 to the end. This will delete whatever is inside the entry box when you press the button. Let's try to run this program and see it for ourselves. If I put a random name like Mike, notice that the entry box is deleted as soon as I push the button. That's what the delete button does. Okay, so today we have learned how to create more padding between the widgets. By using pad X and pad Y, we can control spacing on all four sides of the widget. We also learn how to anchor the widget to the east or the west side of the window. Then, we learn how to get the text from the text box and the entry box and put it into the list. For your homework, I want you to create 2 entry boxes. When you press the button, the function will take both results and print them into the list. The program should look something like this. An example code is included in this chapter folder. Hopefully, it should be rather easy. So, this is all the time we have for today. This is Chieh.